Hey, everybody, welcome to the Leader Show. It's great to have Bill Burns here today with us, who's CEO of Zebra Technologies. Really interesting. When you think about what Zebra does, first of all, they're a most loved workplace. I want to congratulate you on becoming a most loved workplace, Bill. And with we really think about Zebra, every day we go through our lives and we don't realize what's happening necessarily behind the scenes. We go to the grocery store and we scan a grocery at checkout. We go to get our blood drawn, and that blood is taken and somewhere else, and somebody has to know what blood that is, right? Whose blood that is. We go through life. We don't realize that there's people behind the scenes managing what we call supply chain, right? Who are these people? Who are these amazing people who are developing these technologies, who are helping us through our lives every day? And it's Bill and his team at Zebra Technologies, this awesome company, public company, who's a most loved workplace and who is leading the way in these technologies, helping us to have a better day, better healthcare, better manufacturing, better supplies, getting our packages to us on time. This is the infrastructure that helps us all. It's great to have Bill here with us today. He's been leading as the CEO of Zebra Technologies. Bill, welcome to the Newsweek Leader Show.
Yeah, Lou, thanks for having me. We couldn't be more excited about, the award and spending some time with you today talking about Zebra and our culture and all the great things we do for our customers around the world. So thanks for having me.
Great to have you, Bill. And let's dive into culture, because it's all about that, and not only helping our customers, our supply chain, but helping our employees to provide that awesome culture and service to everybody, and empathizing really with what the world is all about, right? And where they're going and how you're developing tech. How do you create this culture of great innovation and great top, most efficient, best in class products? What is it that you have done to enable that to happen?
Yeah, at Zebra, we believe, our employees are our most critical asset, right? They are the company, right? And around the world, we think of, how are our employees really seen, heard, valued, throughout the organization, and then respected, right? And that each employee has a voice and feels like they have that voice in the process of Zebra of really, serving our customers. So we think of, kind of priorities of our organization is really, how do we serve our partners and customers? And much of our business is done through, our partner community around the world. We have about 10,000 channel partners that work closely with our customers. So they're our customers. And then the end customer, as you talked about before, retailers around the world, the largest in the world, transportation logistics companies, manufacturers, healthcare providers, as you talked about, government. They're all our customers here at Zebra. And how do we really focus on our channel partners and our customers, and our employees really get excited about serving those customers? And then we think about, the idea of driving profitable growth across the business. So, I say to our employees, no matter where I go in the world, our employees are really committed to make Zebra successful, because they know ultimately they want to work for a winning company. They want to feel that, being the leader in the market means something. And then ultimately, to them, it means rewards and recognition that they get. And lastly is, how do we build, a strong, culture, and then attract the best and brightest around the world? Because our employees realize that if we've got a great culture, if we really truly care about each other as employees, and not just come to work every day, but truly, care about others, then we'll attract the best and brightest talent, because word will get out that Zebra is a great place to work, a loved workplace, right? And ultimately want to come work for us. And that's really what matters, is how do we attract and retain the best talent of, our employees around the world.
You said a really important word, which is care. So, as a leader, how do you foster that care environment? Because the care is really what it's about,
Yeah.
and it's successfully. What does that look like for you? Yep.
I mean, it's almost, ground roots here at Zebra, right? I think the organization, we talk about, the Zebra Nation, right? And the idea that our employees truly care about each other. They care about their families. They care about what they did on the weekend. They, care about their, colleagues around the world and what's happening, in their environment, whether it's a natural disaster or the things that are happening in their countries, because we're a truly global company. And I think that caring about each other means a lot in the idea of collaborating. I mean, working across boundaries across the organization. We really talk about the idea that, it really takes a village, right? It's not just the engineering team who's innovating or the sales teams who's selling. It really is the entire corporation that has to serve our customers. It's our legal team and our finance team. It's our supply chain team. It's our sales team. It's our marketing teams. It's our engineering teams. We have to be all in the same direction, collaborating. And if people care about each other and work together collaboratively across organizations and truly have a relationship with someone else where they don't just come to work, they come to work and they engage with other employees in other organizations, then we're even more successful because of it, because we're all pulling in the same direction. We all care about each other, we care about their success, and everyone's willing to help out, go above and beyond to be able to serve those customers around the world.
Yeah, and you're number one in key markets you serve, right? So your growth is fueled by these new products or software. And one of the things I do know you do is you provide new candidates and current employees with the ability to define their own professional path, which is really
Yep.
cool. To have this fulfilling career, and and that's really what is shaping the future of frontline work and helping businesses of all size really gain a performance edge. How can they do that as Zebra? Like, how do they do this? The ability to define that professional path. What does that look like? For you when you see employees, like what kind of successes have you seen, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, a great example that's our intern program, right? So we have a internship program that we, look for the best and brightest talent in universities around the world each and every year. And about now we start looking actually because the best talent is attracted to companies early in the fall, earlier than ever before. It used to be kind of January, February. Students started looking for internships. Now it's August, September, October, where they're really committing to companies. But we try to find the best and brightest from not just in the U.S. but around the world. We do it in Canada. We do it in India. We do it in Singapore, other places around the world where we have intern programs. And then a great example of it's our finance team that really looks to hire the interns from the internship programs, whether they work for us for a single summer or 2 summers, make job offers to them before they leave, for the summer, and ultimately bring them into a rotation program within finance. So they actually see a 3-year rotation program where they go through different groups within our finance organization, and be able to get experience across the three. And then they know that each organization you think, oh, they don't want to give that person up, but they know they'll get a next person, right? Somebody else will come into their organization who has just as much energy, just as much excitement about the company the following year. So it's a 3-year rotation. Then ultimately, towards the second half of the third year, that person's looking for their career at Zebra. What did they enjoy doing most? Was it in the finance organization or somewhere else? Where in the finance organization they fit? So that's just one example of us really allowing someone who's an intern to come into the company. They get to spend some time with us. We spend time with them, ultimately hiring them and then giving them a rotation throughout the company to be able to just figure out, hey, what's the best fit for them in finance? Or maybe it's somewhere else. Maybe through those 3 years, they realize I want to be in the sales organization or marketing, or I want to do something else. I want to be tied to the supply chain team. So that's a great example of it, I think, inside Zebra.
Do you find that some people come in and realize this, is the right place for me, or and they need to sort of think about how they fit in more, right? Or do you see people moving a lot? Do you see more movement, or you see more fit? How does that
I
work?
think we see predominantly people once they come into an organization, they kind of, are they in a supply chain team or sales team or marketing teams? They typically stay within those teams. We'd like to actually see more movement, quite honestly, across the organization. I think there's tremendous leaders across every organization, and one of the things we think a lot about is how do we build more general managers within the business, right? Just as our finance team moves people around inside the finance organization to get them experience young in their careers or early in their careers. We think about how do we build general managers? How do we people with a broad breadth of experience across the organization, from customers to product management to engineering to finance, and really understanding a P&L and be able to run a business. So how do you build broad leadership skills? So we've got training programs again for all levels of leadership within the company, from first level managers that have just taken the job all the way through senior vice presidents in the company that we want to become senior vice presidents and lead bigger organizations. So we're always looking to build broader skills around business management and and general management within the company.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Especially in your industry, it's people, it's talent, right? It's well, every company, right? As well,
Yeah.
in yours in general, it's technology and talent and expertise, and building that general manager capability, especially as I know in your culture, your values around accountability, teamwork, innovation, agility, and of course, integrity, and putting that front and center is really very important for a company, and for your company and your success. You make that a part of your stable of who you are and how you promote your culture and how you execute.
Yeah, I mean, we're organized like many, technology companies ultimately, right? A business unit structure that have product management and engineering that ultimately decide on what products and solutions to bring to market, and the engineering teams who engineer them. But that's not where it stops, right? The engineering teams will need to rely on our supply chain organization to actually build the product physically, right? And to service that. They rely on the marketing organization to take what they've developed and be able to tell the market how great it is. It relies on our sales organization to have tight customer relationships, right? It's our finance organization behind the scenes supporting those sales teams and the company as a whole. It's our legal team that ultimately has to negotiate the contracts, right? It's every organization that ultimately we rely on across the organization. So it's not just one that's successful. We celebrate success together, but we win and lose together, right? Because it is truly one team. We can't do it. One organization can't do it without the other. Sales can't go sell if they don't have the products to sell. Our customers can't do delivery of products if our supply chain organization can't build them. So we think of it truly as across the organization is really shared accountability to serving our customers and bringing new innovative solutions to market each and every day, because that's how we continue to grow as a company.
It's interesting that, recently I've been thinking a little bit more about this, especially with technology and organizations, which is, do we find talented people and mold them within our culture, or do we find people who fit our culture, right,
Yeah,
and mold them to grow? So that's really, it's a choice.
it's both. I think you have to do both, right? I think ultimately there's times when we've entered new businesses or new areas where we just haven't had the expertise, right? That we've got great leaders in the organization, but they just don't have the knowledge in a specific area. And then we've had to go outside. Our preference always is to promote somebody, from inside the organization to grow their careers. But there's times you've got to go outside, right? And then you've got to use some of the, best recruiting firms. You ultimately got to spend a lot of time with the candidate. We make it a point for senior level folks when we're going to hire them is to really just go. The last step in the process is literally go out and have dinner, right? Just spend time together for a couple hours, just really making sure there's a cultural fit on both sides, quite honestly, that they're going to fit in and they appreciate what Zebra does and what we represent. And then ultimately, an interview for them and really us understanding, are they a cultural fit for us? So, we find you got to do both. And our preference is always internal, but there's times you got to go outside.
It's funny that the other thing too, with that in mind, is just determining cultural fit, right? And taking the time to do it actually will pay off in dividends, because the execution takes longer when there's not a fit. And the execution is very important in our companies, especially with growth. So I think taking that time is very important to know there's a fit. This is an interesting question from Carrie Gilliam. She said, in your talent strategy, and this is important, I'm sure everyone wants to know how to do this properly. We haven't all gotten this. How do you assess new talent to determine if they'll be a good fit for your most loved workplace culture, the one that we've been describing? Like, how do you actually, how do you actually do that? And you mentioned dinner, which is awesome. The last step in the recruiting process, which is awesome. And so are there other ways that you find are very effective just for that particular, maybe, most loved workplace culture you found?
Yeah, I mean, it really is the interview process, right? I mean, that's the only real way to tell. The other is that, as I said, the intern process is easier because you're spending, a couple of months at least, right, with the candidate. So that's an easier time frame, or easier to do, because you're spending 6, 8 weeks with a candidate, right? Now they're new out of school, so they don't nearly have as much, but to offer the organization at the time, they're still learning. But again, that's a bit easier. I think through the interview process, it's a bit more challenging, right? It's only a limited number of hours, right, or half-hour segments or others that you're interviewing a candidate and making that determination, right? And I think that we've gone to a hybrid work approach, right? Really to give employees flexibility, but really want to be in the office, 3 days a week to really collaborate. And that's another way is not just dinner at the senior level, but, interviewing our candidates in person, not just over Zoom, right? Trying to make sure that there's at least some time place in the interview where they're meeting face to face with somebody within the organization and really trying to find the best fit. We work towards diverse slates of candidates, right? Ultimately, to make sure that we're looking at the entire marketplace and looking at diversity across the organization, because that's an important piece to us too, is the diversity of thought within the organization, right? There's that's really important to us as we continue to innovate. So that's another important piece of the interview process. But it's hard, right? It's hard. But I think that ultimately assessing not just somebody's execution abilities, as you said, but are they a cultural fit? Because then you excel at execution by collaborating across the organization as someone who really is a cultural fit. You get so much more out of overall from the organization's perspective.
It kind of brings me to this question. Just brought it up. This is people comment. So it's like a stream of consciousness. This one's interesting because it's talking about your collaborative approach, right? You're talking about that before. And there's also sort of, making decisions timely, right? So like you have consensus building, which takes more time, more collaborative. And then there's sort of more of an execution, got to get this done, right? And I know both exist, they're not mutually exclusive. You need both, right? So tell me more about how this manifests to drive innovation and employee satisfaction at the same time. How does that work? How do you make that work at your company, especially in tech? Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to have deadlines, right? Ultimately, that you've got to make the decision and move forward, right? So I think it's the idea of consensus oriented is really giving everyone a voice, right, and making sure that they feel they can be heard. And I think ultimately that sometimes the decision doesn't go the way that they'd anticipate, right? But I think in a culture of saying, hey, now we're aligned, we understand all the perspectives, but we have to move forward. And I think that ultimately that's what it comes down to in this idea of making timely decisions. I think it's you won't want to rush to a decision. I always point out to my team that I may have an opinion on something as CEO, but I'm open to someone else's ideas and thoughts around it because I could be wrong. Right. It's many times I'm not, the smartest person in the room. My team is, right. Ultimately. And it's that collaborative approach, that decision making together, that, consensus building, if you can get there. But ultimately you need to move on at some point, and the leader of the organization or myself as CEO has to go make that decision and that call. But most of the time we can find, middle ground across the organization. It may not be or across the decision. Sometimes it's tough and you just got to go make it. I think that, but I think that trying to build consensus, working closely, stakeholder management, we talk about a lot, right? Before we come into the meeting, sometimes we, talk to our presenters about, presenting an early view of what they're going to share to leadership team before they're going to share it with us. And that way they get some feedback early on, right? And some things to think about, and they can come into the room with a more balanced approach as well. But ultimately the decision has to be made and timelines have to move forward. And I think that everyone's in that same position is allow everyone to be heard, ultimately make the decision and move forward with the best information you have and be willing to change it and pivot if you got it wrong. I think that's the other thing is that you've got to realize if you've made that decision and ultimately it turns out not to be the right one, it's okay to say I made a mistake and it's wrong. And we're going to head in a different direction because either things have changed or we haven't been able to execute the way we thought we would.
I found there's people who have different tolerance for changes like that. And they think, they either have two points of view on that. You're wishy-washy or you have agility and innovation mindset. I like the latter. I like the latter. I like the agility and innovation mindset means you've had enough information to make a decision that pivots to provide the best possible innovative product to the market. I do believe that's how our best companies do their work. They put the best product forward, then they market. Yep. Steve Jobs always said it that way. I always believed in it and I always loved it. I put it into everything that I do too. Make the best product for the customer. You will get the best marketed product and then it will sell the best. And it's simple math. I was curious something, Bill, about something is how things have changed with the hybrid workforce. Formerly, people who have been at work, has there been more asynchronous communication because of the hybrid that may help your company come maybe to more consensus? Has it helped, or has it helped with this collaborative mindset and quick to market mindset that keeps you agile and able to innovate and bring the best possible product to market? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it's, look, I think it's always easier when everyone's in the room, right? But as a global company, that's hard to do, in an environment that we were in prior to COVID, right? Everyone wasn't in the room that needed to have a voice, in the decision making. So, many times you're in an environment that's, partial remote, partial, people in the room together. I think it's always easier if you're literally face to face to make that decision, to have the hard discussions, to really discuss the topics. I think you can share information, and we try to do this even with our executive leadership team meetings, and encourage our employees the same. If there's information just being shared, then that applies well to kind of Zoom meetings or Teams meetings or others, right? That ultimately you can do it through video and share information. If you really want to have a collaborative discussion, it works better in person. And is there a way to divide the agendas up between in-face meetings or face-to-face meetings and remote ones wherever one's remote? I think it also works a bit better when everyone's remote. It's hard when five people in a conference room and one or two people remote. It's just hard to have a voice in that unless you're very conscious around it. So I think that's how we think about it. Is sometimes it's harder, right? It's harder remote. It's harder to really get everyone to speak up. It's harder. But if everyone's remote, I think during COVID, everybody saw that everybody was equal because you were all on the same screen and you were all, working from home. I think now that you're in this environment where there's employees in the office and employees remote, it just becomes a bit harder. But I think you work through it. You can't, it's a time consuming, expensive, and others to travel as well. So you got to work in an environment where you got to find where both works, because otherwise you end up spending a lot of money, traveling, and a lot of time and energy doing that just to be in a room for a meeting or two, an hour or two meeting or three or four. And it's just unproductive from that perspective. So you got to find the balance. It's always easier in person.
Well, I hear you. Get it done in person. Let you see the whites of our eyes, right? See what we're and see how serious or not we are about something. Let's go to the diversity and inclusion for just a moment. I know you talked about that. And I want to definitely give a word to it, especially so. Anders Gustafsson, am I saying it right?
Yeah,
he joined he joined a coalition of CEO to Action in 2019 to advance diversity and inclusion in the workplace. How does that manifest, and how does that work within your company itself? Like, what is your diversity and inclusion council, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, within our organization, within Zebra, we as I said, we foster an environment where we look for every employee to really be heard, and we look for a diversity across the organization, and would always like to have more diversity. I think we're a diverse company, certainly because we're diverse around the globe and have employees around the globe. We could be more diverse, like most tech companies inside North America, and we're working hard to be that. I think that we think of it as really about you know fostering innovation and fostering thought across the organization. Really is better when you have diverse points of view, all kinds of different views. On decision making, as we talked about before, how do you come to this consensus? Well, you come to better consensus and better decisions if you have diversity of thought within the organization. I think to grow our diversity within the organization, as I said, we do things like many companies, right? Diversity of slates of candidates. Really think about diversity as we're hiring within the organization. How do we grow careers of diverse candidates within our organization through some of the training and development I talked about before? So it's an important part of our culture. I think that we've always been an inclusive organization because we truly are global, and because we care about each other. We are absolutely inclusive around the world. We could just be more diverse in the U.S. like most tech companies, and I think that we're seeing more graduates from universities that are female and diverse candidates on the engineering side. That's a good example of there hasn't been the candidates in the past. Now there is. So there's no real excuse. You just got to go find them, right? You got to work a little bit harder to attract and grow and develop and retain those diverse candidates within the workplace. So it's really important to us as a company.
Absolutely. That's the thing is that, diversity is not just, it's not just a nice thing to do. It's a business imperative. It represents our customer set. It helps us also with inclusion and belonging, to think differently, to help people become psychologically safe within an environment. It's so important, diversity and inclusion. I'm delighted to hear how seriously you take it as well.
Yeah.
It means a lot to hear that from a CEO, and to see that you continue that at Zebra. This is wonderful. What else would you like to everyone to know? Right. So you're talking to either candidates or your employees. What kind of message do you want to tell them today? Kind of a final parting message from Bill Burns.
Yeah, I think what we're most excited about is of the award, right? Is that is the fact that it comes from our employees, truly voting and saying Zebra is a loved workplace, right? And I think that when awards come from our employees, as opposed to someone outside looking at Zebra and making an assessment, I think that we're most excited about that because it's really our employees voting on how great a place Zebra is to work, and that continues to foster this idea that other employees or other potential employees would like to come to work at Zebra overall, and that's true kind of around the world, because I think that fostering this best and brightest talent around the world is what makes us successful. But that's what excites us about the award. I guess I'll wrap up with is that it truly comes from a grassroots of our employees, truly saying we're a loved workplace, and I think that that's really important to me overall, is that our employees are voting as opposed to someone else from the outside.
Well, I'm excited that you understand that and that you appreciate that, because that is exactly what most love workplace is.
Yeah.
It really is truly coming from your employees. They've just given you an acceptance, a certificate, to tell you they really said that you are loved.
Yeah.
Other what indices, well, list, they don't do that. And we actually took the time to do that, to nurture it, to find it out, to care about it in a deep way. And that means you really did make it. So Zebra actually made Most Loved Workplace, and their employees actually did give this to them. Thank you so much for recognizing that that is the truth. They really did. There's a lot of responsibility too with that, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's interesting too, because we can't influence our work floors, right? So we can't even go out and tell them, hey, this survey's coming out. Give us good, give us good. It really is, totally comes from yourselves, right, in your organization, and the organization does the polling. So again, it's a great award, and we're excited about it.
We're excited for you too. Congratulations again, Bill Burns, CEO of Zebra Technologies. Glad to have you on the show, and we'll hopefully see you again soon, Bill. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou. Thank you.
Good stuff, right?